How do you create a world that's never been seen?
Filmmaking by its very nature is a collaborative medium, so you make sure that you have the best people working for you. That's the first thing.
For me, and probably for most other designers, there is no real procedure about how you get an idea or where you take it from. Often I find myself staring at a blank sheet of paper.
It starts with a script, which acts as a blueprint for the imagination. Working with the director, the production designer conjures up the look of the story and works with the many artisans to create the world of Harry Potter.
In the case of Dumbledore, I think initially it was the blank sheet of paper, but then it occurred to me that the brief was, this is the boss, you know, this is the big man, he has the best office.
It is meant to be located inside a tower, and so that was something that was discussed at the beginning and something that's reflected in the architecture.
For Dumbledore's office, Stuart and I talked about it briefly, and then he met with a concept artist, and then the drawings were brought to me, and I looked at the drawings and I said, that's perfect. A man of Dumbledore's stature, this is the kind of office he should have. We presented it to some people who said, we can't afford that office. You'll never be able to make that office. Stuart and I said, well, it's Dumbledore's office. He needs to have this staggering office.
Admittedly, this is a big budget film, but even so, every film, however big the budget, has its constraints. You know, the dreams are always more expensive than the purse will allow.
So after a lot of help from our producers in terms of securing the funds to build the office, we were able to begin work on Dumbledore's office.
I think at our busiest, we were probably about 250 construction people with various specialities: carpenters, riggers, plasterers, painters. So all of those skills come together. They take the drawings, the carpenters, you know, literally build the structure of the set. The plasterers come along and put the skin on it, the skin being this gypsum chalk plaster finish. The bit you actually photograph is what the painters do. So it's a kind of relay race, really. All those skills come in one after the other.
The set decorations consist of the furniture, such as the paintings, desks, bookcases, and even the telescope found in Dumbledore's office.
In the case of Dumbledore's office, there are script requirements. The outer room, there have to be portraits of previous headmasters, and they're all sleeping and snoring. And so the first room had to be predominantly these portraits, which were all commissioned. Obviously, you can't go out and rent portraits of wizards sleeping. I mean, they do not exist. So a team of 4 or 5 artists painted wizard portraits. Dumbledore, he's interested in all things celestial, in astronomy, in scientific instruments, and so he has the most extraordinary telescope.
We thought it was important to have that particular telescope in Dumbledore's office because we may want to use it on a 3rd or 4th film.
So we looked at ancient astronomical instruments and built, with drawings, sketches, this bizarre piece of machinery.
Our goal with it always, it's fantasy, yes, but we wanted to root everything in a reality. We did not want things to be purely fantastical.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning,
the greenhouse was a chance to sort of show another side of Hogwarts. So the greenhouse, it had to feel like it's existed for hundreds of years, and it had to feel like a very earthy, natural place.
The origin of the set was probably for cost reasons as much as anything initially, to go to a real greenhouse if we could. The best greenhouses in this country are in Kew Gardens. The day came that we were to scout. Anybody who's lived in London probably knows that the air traffic is a problem. I think we'd stepped out of the bus, we'd been there for 3 minutes, and it was quickly apparent that this was never going to work as a film location. So we came back here, and you know, same concept actually, but suddenly the Kew Gardens greenhouse was something that we also built, part full size, part perspective, and part scenic painting, just flat, 2-dimensional scenic painting.
Today we're going to repot mandrakes.
The script calls for numerous things to fill the bookcases, desks, and other furnishings the set decorator has sourced. Some objects are antiques, some are brand new. It's up to a group of talented people from the props department to find, construct, and place all of these elements.
Stephanie McMillan is the set decorator and is therefore largely responsible for colour and for texture. In Dumbledore's office, the idea was that he was interested in astronomy, so we really went for that, and there were astrolabes and orreries in his office. In a film like this, where magic grows out of seemingly ordinary things, that the chances are you pretty much have to make special props.
Okay, come on.
The burrows, to me, I felt that it's got to be filled with sort of magical, whimsical inventions.
Your sons flew that enchanted car of yours to Surrey and back last night.
Did you really? How'd it go?
This house is jammed full of things collected, things seen, things found, 1,000 different things. I'm sure 1,000's an underestimate, actually. And the shopping for that took place over many, many months. Stephanie and her team would go to auctions, and then some of the very special ones, the special clocks, were made by our prop-making department.
The frying pan and the knitting needles we thought would be really fun to do practically, so we actually put quite a lot of time and effort into building knitting needles that knitted on their own. In fact, one of our crew spent a long time coercing his mother into doing lots of knitting for us so that he could video it and see how the knitting needle should operate.
It's not much, but it's home.
I think it's brilliant.
You go onto these sets and you see them for the first time and they're completely dressed. I mean, these are places that you could actually go in and live. You could actually read the books, use the instruments, sleep on the sofas because they're so comfortable. And it's an incredible experience to walk onto these sets because you believe that they're real.
Well, sit down.
Before shooting begins, the visual effects are thoroughly planned. The effects often combine film footage with computer-generated images. Creatures, such as forks, however, are partly constructed for placement in the scenes as they are filmed.
With Harry Potter, all the concepts, the sort of initial discussions, come about through meetings between the director of the art department, John Richardson in special effects, myself, primarily to work out who's going to do which bits.
Who is it?
With Aragog, we sat down in meetings at the very beginning. You know, everyone is going, well, of course, Aragog has to be CG. He's enormous, you know, it couldn't possibly be done for real. And so, sort of like a fool, I went, excuse me, I think we can build that. And it's always scary when you've built something that's taken that long and it's that complex, and the whole scene is centered around this character in one way. Sort of, if it didn't work, they were going to CG it. And in fact, when they did the rough cut of the scene, they apparently decided they don't need to CG him at all. At that point, Chris Columbus did turn around to me and say, well, you did say you could do that. And, you know, I said, yes. And it doesn't stop me being completely surprised.
Forks?
The Phoenix, it's a very complex creature to start with, and feathering is very different from hair or anything else because you're working with real feathers, and it's very difficult to duplicate that. I work very closely with the visual effects supervisors so that, you know, the guys who are actually modelling the feathers of the Phoenix in the computer can come and see our Phoenix, and we can talk to them and they can go, oh yeah, that's really lovely, but that's going to give us a nightmare, so you can offer something else. That kind of thing goes on all the time.
Amazing! This is just like magic!
The cinematographer's job is not only filming the scene, but lighting it as well. Lighting is important because it can make a scene feel safe or scary.
Chris said, I'd like you to see the first film, and we'd like to go darker.
Roger and I set out at the beginning. Hogwarts is a place that is magical and glowing, but as the events at Hogwarts take a darker and more serious and quite terrifying turn, the film gets darker, and the magical glow starts to go away.
I think dark as a mood, how you achieve it might not entail less light, but it's just allowing the corners of the hall or the staircase to just go off into nothing.
When we get into Dumbledore's office the second time in the film, everything's resolved, so it's a much happier, warmer place.
Set and action. Be in your bonnet, Potter.
When we get there the first time, Roger and I talked about it being a much more mysterious place because Harry is at a point in the film where he's questioning who he is.
You see, I was wondering if you put me in the right house.
He's questioning, could he potentially be the rightful heir of Slytherin? Could he be doing something evil without his knowledge?
Set! Action!
We had a Steadicam operator on this film who was absolutely superb. He could move unlike anything I'd ever seen before. It liberated me as a director because I was actually able to stand next to him and take his shoulders at some point and turn him this way and that way.
Know any spells?
You actually become an active part of filmmaking because you're in there. In a sense, it was similar to the basilisk in the walls of Hogwarts, which is constantly moving and slithering around. We wanted that snake-like quality in the camera movement this time.
Working with the script, the costume designer uses the story as inspiration for their designs, always being mindful that the wardrobe complements the set. Then, hair and makeup are designed to best visually express the personality of each character.
As a school treat, all exams have been cancelled.
I think Dumbledore is one of those characters who very much had to proceed how he had the way he had already gone.
Shall we?
Dumbledore is difficult with all that hair. It's uncomfortable, especially with that he used to sit on it. So you'd always have to be there to lift it so that he could sit down.
Where have you been?
Morning, Weasleys!
I thought Mr. and Mrs. Weasley's costumes are some of my favourite costumes that I've ever done. It was a big design exercise, really, doing them, because we knew a lot about them from the books, and we know a lot about where they live from the books. And then Stuart Craig and I kind of discussed ever such a lot about their home life. And we knew all about her knitting, you know, how she loves knitting. And so I think we just went on a wool and tweed adventure, you know. I imagine that Mrs. Weasley has crocheted and knitted and pulled together all these things herself. Lockhart's character. It was very difficult because in the script it tells you that he wears lilac and pink and pale blue and all these sort of colours. And really, within the colour scheme of the Harry Potter film, that doesn't work. It would look vulgar and rather, you know, like the end of the pier sort of look.
Can everybody see me? Can you all hear me?
Lockhart has the most smashing smile, and Ken's teeth weren't actually perfect, so we had these amazing teeth made. And so when he smiles, they're absolutely perfect, top and bottom, white, dead straight.
Lucius Malfoy.
We tried a lot of things for Mr. Malfoy, and, you know, that was a tricky one.
It's one of the worst things for a hairdresser, is putting a blonde wig on dark hair.
We bleached his eyebrows at one point, but it took away that strength of character of his face. It detracted. So we went with the dark eyebrows and the light hair.
Mark my words, Potter. One day soon, you are going to meet the same sticky end.
Once the scene has been shot, the editor is needed to piece the film together. Then, sound effects and music add the finishing touches.
Every day the film comes to me, from the shoot the day before, I cut all those pictures together.
What a night. 9 raids. 9!
Raids? Dad works in the Ministry of Magic, in the Misuse of Muggle Artifacts Office. Dad,
And show that to the director, where he and I massage it into the final story. What I do is I tell a story in pictures.
Diagon Alley!
And the effects editor, he does virtually the same sort of thing, but with effects. He enhances the movie. So if there's a door closing, he changes that to a much bigger door, perhaps, or he can change the whole sound of a car. So everybody's sort of making this baby grow and adding pieces, their own pieces, to the final contribution.
John Williams and I will sit down, and then we'll go through the film and talk about specific places that I'd like music to start and end.
No one ever comes in here.
Why?
Moaning Myrtle.
Who?
Moaning Myrtle.
Who's Moaning Myrtle?
I'm Moaning Myrtle.
Composing an orchestra score for a film is a labor-intensive process because both Harry Potter films are almost completely scored from one end to another. We all recognize if we can see these films without music and then see them with it, we realize that some aspect of the nourishing blood of what makes a film work comes from the music.
Harry! It's Hermione! Harry! It's Hermione!
Actually, I think I spend more time thinking about that melodic material than film scores. And when it's successful, it's a great reward, I think, certainly for me personally, and hopefully for those people who take the music away and want to play it or learn it or hear it over again.
It's the work of many talented people that make the magic finally come to life on film. Now, let's take a peek at the final results.
Professor Dumbledore?
There is sufficient evidence to have you both expelled.
So the Sorting Hat was right. I should be in Slytherin.
Be in your bonnet, Potter.